and welcome back to another episode of Beneath the Lift Tower. My name's Charles McGilvray, and as always, I'm joined by Jess Kettle and Simon Stacey. We're a fans podcast by fans for fans of Northampton Saints. Before we get into it, just a reminder to follow us on social media and please add us on all the platforms where you get your podcast from so you can get our content as soon as we release it. How are you both doing?
Good, thank you.
I'm good, thanks, mate.
Good. It's, I mean, that was proper rugby, wasn't it? Like, best game of the season. Actually, I've been missing that. That was a proper game of rugby.
It was, mate. I think the whole fixtures were, weren't they? There was no one. I don't think there was any one-sided. I think they were all competitive. But yeah, it was a proper game. Obviously, Gloss turned up with nothing to lose, and that showed. And we, nearly let it go, but Super Ferb saved us at the end.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is one we can get to, but I said before last week I was worried about Gloucester. You know, the Chris Boyd factor. He's gone in there and made some really good decisions, and they're looking sharp, aren't they? Playing with confidence.
Yeah, I literally said the same to the people sat around me. I went, you can see, I think it was their third try. I was like, that is Saints. It was literally a Saints try where when Hendy it was in the bin when Hendy went off because we needed a prop. They literally just passed it out quick, and I was like, that's Saints. They literally just copied our play. I was like, that's the Boyd effect, and fair play to them. They've got nothing against Gloss. They play really well, but I don't really want to mention we'll talk that in a minute, the ref, but my God, that man is, we won't bring him up yet, but we got what we needed. We finished top, and we guaranteed a semi-final at home on Friday night under the lights, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, it was I don't know, it was a weird game because, like I said, Gloucester was a situation where they sort of do and don't have something to lose. Like, obviously, they're not at the top end of the table, but they do still have one of those 8 qualifying spots, do they not, for Champions Cup rugby? So I think that plus, you're at the home of the team that's top, you just literally throw everything at it. You proper go for it. And yeah, they've definitely had some really big improvements in the, I don't know, weeks, months. I don't know how long it's been there, but it's not long since, Boydie has come in, and they just threw everything at it. And yeah, it ended up being a bizarre weekend that, like, other than maybe our game in Sarries, all the other results went like the complete opposite way to what most people were expecting. So yeah, you can't really, it's a strange one. Yeah, there's bits and I'm sure there's bits of the performance you can kind of pick out as not being as strong as you would expect, but at the end of the day, like, we finished top. We can't be caught now. You get your home semi-final. You get the Friday night lights, which I believe they've requested because it's what they want. And to be honest, I know some people will disagree, but I think it's what I want. Like, there's something else about Friday night lights rugby and having it as a semi-final. And I suppose, outside of Saints, it's a good thing for the Prem because, there's lots of conversations of, is it as competitive as people would like it to be? I think this weekend has shown it definitely has that capability. And now we're heading into the last weekend, and there's quite a few permutations still for who might come second, third, and fourth. And at one point, it didn't look like that was going to happen. So yes, it's nice from a Saints perspective to be totally safe. Don't get me wrong. I'm definitely going to enjoy that in the last weekend. But yeah, I mean, we did what we needed to at the end of the day. But I think Dow summed it up quite well that he said, yes, he loved that Ferb's got kind of like the fairy tale ending of being the one that solidified the home semi-final for us. But he's definitely annoyed about kind of the mindset and sort of the performance that was put out on the pitch, which is understandable. But I also don't I don't want to take away from Gloucester by suggesting that, it was only because we were off colour. No, I think they turned up and they put a really good performance on the park, and they should, be really proud of that, and hopefully they can push on that next season.
I think there's definitely been games this year where we've discussed previously where our mindset just wasn't right, and whether that's the games which are perceived we should win, and we should do well, or playing against a perceived weakened Bath side as an example, and we just didn't show up. But those things were definitely mindset, and those the things done wrong. But I honestly think against Gloucester, it was just a case. As much as there was probably mindset and things weren't as great as they could have been, Gloucester were just good. Like, I thought Ollie Thorley probably won't get any plaudits, but I thought he was outstanding.
He was, mate. He was amazing, yeah.
They had this play where they would use him to crash up the ball, and it was almost like a midfield pivot role where they just basically gave him the option to crash it up. and he ran with such intent and energy. Like he's a player who's probably been really unlucky with injury over the piece, but he's someone who like Boyd's just going to get the best out of him because he's got huge potential, and you give him confidence and give him a run of games and get the best out of him. Like he was, I just thought he was amazing, and you had Loader on the other wing, who's just a pure athlete, and same again if they get a run out of him games, and Atkinson was good in midfield, and that Llewellyn's a good prospect, and Charlie Atkinson's becoming a real talent that we thought he'd be, and that Engerfield seems to be, a real promise. And then in the forward pack, is it Arthur Clark or something like that?
Clark, I was going to say Clark.
Yeah,
Absolute monster. He reminds me of Alex Moon back in the day when he was coming through, just absolute beast of a man. All those things, like they've got all the workings of a really good side, and they're just sort of putting it out on the pitch and letting them play. And I don't know if I said it on here, but I've said it throughout the week. I would not be surprised 3 or 4 years Gloucester are challenging for a title. I think they've got they're a very similar club to us. They've got everything going for them in terms of producing talent, the right building blocks to go upwards, and they've got someone now at the helm who just make the right decisions and give them confidence, and not try and shortcut things, and not try and buy their way to success. They'll just get a real culture, and it'll work, and they'll be title contenders. I reckon 3-4 years they'll be there.
Yeah, definitely.
They're a good side. They're a very good side. Forney, the one that stopped Dingers in the corner as well with that tackle.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
I had to look back at it because you couldn't see it on the big screen so well. But when you do look back at it, it was an excellent tackle, and he just managed to cling onto his ankle and drag him into.
I've seen it back now. I did when I was talking to you two. I was like, I don't think that. I thought that was a try, but you can see his foot just touches before he gets the ball down.
Split second, isn't it? Split second just before he grounds it.
Yeah.
I mean, fair play to the TMO on that one. Should we just cover it off and get it done? Should we just deal with it, and then just have a sort of we'll move on and we won't discuss it. But
the Matthew Carley show, you mean?
It was the only souring note of what was an outstanding game of rugby for me. I thought the game was outstanding. For the players and show were all incredible. I thought his attitude, some of his clear and obvious errors, really soured things for me, and it sort of influenced the game a bit, and there's occasions where like some of the things he's saying is clearly not true, so therefore either he's guessing, we've said this about other refs before, but like either he's guessing or he's being dishonest. When he claims, oh, Pollock didn't release, you didn't release, and then you see on the big screen, and they've actually, funny enough, that's been cut out of the highlights, the extended highlights, an hour of rugby highlights, and you can't get a crucial decision in it. That seems strange to me, but Pollock's hands were clearly off the player before he went back onto it, and Carley was nowhere near to be seen, but gave the penalty against Pollock. The right penalty just in front of the posts when they needed the penalty to go ahead. Oh no, your hand on the other side of your body touched the floor when it actually didn't, so he can't have seen it. So it's either he's guessing or he's being dishonest, and just because of his attitude, it makes you think of all sorts of things. But
I don't know if Jess still. Do you have the ref link?
Yeah.
Did you hear when one of the players was down? I don't know whether he was talking about himself or one of the touch judges, but he was talking about a call, and he referred to it as a blind squirrel will sometimes find a nut. So that to me says like, I'm guessing, because he meant I laughed because I was like, is he having a laugh? So he's basically saying at one point I'll get something right even if I'm just guessing it, and that'll be on the broadcast because it'll be on the telly. Well, I was so livid with him. I was getting wound up because he was ruining a really good game of rugby, and I get trying to be pally with the players, but you can't do that. Ask them a question, then when they ask you a question back, ignore them. And it reminded me of Wayne Barnes when he was younger. Wayne Barnes used to be all about him, and then he progressed to be one of the best in the world. But I don't think Carley ever will. I don't hope we don't get him in the semi or the final.
Well, that's the thing with Carly. Like all the other refs, even Dixon. Dixon's actually a really good ref now. I think Christoph Ridley's had some mares in the earliest parts. I think he's possibly the best referee in the league at the moment. Um, uh, Pierce seems to have his moments, but he's generally pretty good. But like Carly's just been his attitude hasn't changed in his entire time he's a ref. He speaks to players in such a vile way. Like, I just have no time for him. He's just awful. He's not good enough to justify the arrogance, and he's not a good representation of rugby. He's not a good example for young referees. He's not a good example for amateurs refereeing on a Sunday. He's just there's nothing good about him in my eyes, in the way he acts and the way he carries on. And refs make mistakes. It's just the way he talks is one thing. But then also I think so many of those decisions seem to go against us. Is that because for some reason we've peed him off and therefore he's got an ego on him and he's going to give us against stuff? I mean, it's not necessarily just Carly, but it is a few weeks in a row now. Quite a few weeks in a row, Pollock seems to get the wrong end of decisions. Right, like for no reason, In the Bristol games, Genge hip tosses him. Pierce has a word with Pollock. Like it was an unprovoked attack. In that game at the weekend, first of all he was perfectly legal. It was one of the best turnovers you've seen in ages. He that tackle, drag him down, hands in the air, back on the ball, textbook, penalised. And Carly was having a go at him in the match as well for basically being in when he was in the Leicester the game when basically they squared up to Pollock. Carly had a go at Pollock, it just seems, I don't know, it seems like decisions go against Pollock for who he is rather than what actually happens.
That seems to be coming in more and more. But do you know what? I still listen to it after it's finished. And he was talking. Pollock went over to him, and he said he was talking. And I remember he said something like, "Oh, I'm not like other refs. I'll listen to the players. I'll talk to you." And Pollock's like, "Oh, okay, yeah." I was like, "You don't, mate. You don't read your own press. You know what I mean?"
A minute in, he sent Furbank away, didn't he? A minute in.
Exactly. And he's already got an ego about us and doesn't like us. He's not going to improve it with that boo he got as he left the field.
Yeah. I think I've said it multiple times on here that like his attitude is horrendous, but I'm like, there's a part of you that can say like, right, I absolutely hate this, but if he's going to get decisions correct, like you can almost kind of like learn to live with it. And like I'd say 9 times out of 10, he usually has a game where I don't like the way he speaks to people, but would I normally say he makes really egregious decisions often? No. But I just don't know what happened. I don't know what happened over the weekend where it's just, I mean, like you said, that I suppose the Pollock one's the best one to pick because it was just so obviously wrong. Like, and I think you said, Charles, that you're on the other side, you sit on the other side of the pitch to where that happened and you could see it. It's like you could see the hands come off and go back on. It was pretty much in line with me, and it was like he's so obviously. And then don't get me wrong, I know that refs give penalty decisions, and unless there's some other superseding foul play, they never change their decision. But Carly saw that on the big screen and then just smiled at it, and I was like, so he knows. He probably knew in that moment he got it wrong, but he's not going to change. And he don't get me wrong, he's not the only ref that does it. Like you're right that Christoph Ridley is a good ref, but the one thing he does that gets on my nerves all the time is he'll give a penalty and then he'll say to a player on the opposing team like, "Oh, if I've got it wrong, I apologise." I'm like, don't apologise, just make correct decisions. Like he must say it about 10 times a match, and every time it really gets on my nerves. But he is a good ref outside of that, so it's just that one particular thing. And like sometimes Luke Pearce will say something, and you're just like, "Oh, for God's sake!" But like, it was just. And don't get me wrong, I can appreciate that we gave 4 penalties away in the first 4 minutes, and they were all for things we definitely did do, like multiple offsides on the line, etc. And we were given a warning for down there. And I don't know if maybe that just soured it in his mind straight away of like, oh, this team's going to give loads of penalties away. But I don't know if he was just working on that premise or whatever. And I don't get me wrong, we did give penalties away. I'm not trying to say that like we didn't. There was definitely things that we did, but it's almost like that. Almost like gets in the ref's head that, well, we can't do anything right. And yeah, you're right about Pollock. I don't know what it is. And that's why I always liked Nigel Owens as a ref, but I really, really vehemently disagreed with him when he came out with that op-ed piece about Pollock and his attitude and stuff. And it was just not, I just didn't think it was the nicest thing to really kind of publicize. But yeah, it's almost like they've decided that part of their job also is to, like, ref players' attitudes. I said unless they're doing something rude, offensive, or illegal in terms of like the laws of the game, like you just leave them be. Like he's not going to be the only like player with a certain type of attitude in the league. He's not the first. We've had them before. We'll have them afterwards. Like everyone always like jumps on the band. I hate bandwagon for him, but like he's not unique in terms of like rubbing people up the wrong way. It's just a part of his game. And I could appreciate that he gets himself in lots of breakdowns and lots of rucks, and therefore is he likely to give penalties away every so often? Yes. But at least make the right decisions. Because I reckon he got penalised 2 or 3 times. Yes, he did get one turnover that was given to him, but it was like so blatantly obvious that he'd got his hands over the ball and it was a turnover. There was no sort of other decision that could be made. But yeah, I think it just, and you could see that he was getting frustrated, particularly with that no release penalty. But yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is like I hate booing in the game anyway. I never boo anyone. I didn't boo anyone on the day, but there was a big bit of me that felt sorry for Charlie Atkinson, who's just being heavily booed when he's taking a penalty kick, and I was like, it's nothing to do with this kid, right? You know, he gets a penalty decision. I'm sure that Atkinson himself probably deep down doesn't really give a crap. I'm sure most players probably don't, but I'm like, let's not turn it into one of these like he did nothing wrong. Like yes, you could argue the penalty decision, and everybody will, but like he's just stepping up to take a 3 points that's been given to his team. Like
I don't think I think he would know that he's not being booed. It's the decision that's being booed. Like, and you know, in England, there's a tradition of being quiet, and it is only in England, right? Like, get that really straight. Yeah. You know, it is only in England that is a tradition to keep quiet during the kicks. Everywhere else in the world of rugby, that's not the case. But you know, I mean, there's been lots of times where there's decisions made and the penalty will be booed at Franklin's Gardens. Like, we're not perfect. I wouldn't boo a kick because, you know, I just don't. But it wouldn't be the first time.
Nah, that really, really annoyed me. And I was telling people around me to shut up because it was just like, it's not his fault. It's not Gloucester's fault. They're going to take the penalty. He's on the big screen. And Jeff Allen, bless him, he always used to come on the mic and say, look, we don't do that here. I know what you're saying about around the country. It's respect. It was because it was such a decisive penalty, wasn't it? Was it the one that put them in the lead?
Yeah, put them in the league, and it was factually like 100% wrong. Like he said, you put your hand down on the ground on the far side, and he can't have seen that because it didn't happen. No, like so said, he's making it up.
Like Jess said, though, I saw that. He watched the screen, and we all saw it, and he probably went, "Oh crap, that's the wrong decision." But he just smirked. I was like, "You're an." Oh, I've got to be careful not to swear on it. I was getting more wound up than when we win a game in the last minute because he was really winding me up because he was ruining a good game. Because they were proper up for it. Yeah. They were proper up for it.
It's the only sale point of an excellent game.
Yeah, I will say, like, I actually don't think that. For me, like, I wasn't annoyed about the booing because it was noise. I agree. Like, I don't think players care if people are making noise when they kick. I really don't think it, unless it's really, really quiet and someone shouts right as they're about to kick, and sometimes that can disrupt something. But otherwise, like you said, it like in France, they make lots of noise, for example, when they take the kick, and I don't mind that. I think for me specifically, it's the booing itself. I'm like, you know, I get that they're not, and I think, like I said, he probably knew they're not booing him, they're booing the decision, but I feel like you can make noise during a kick and still be respectful of that person that's taking the kick at the same time. And I feel like there were a couple of instances where maybe we strayed over the line there as like a collective group of people. And I never boo anyone anyway, even if I feel like someone's done something really egregious. Like if someone's done something really bad, I don't boo them. But yeah, it was a bit like we need to calm that down a little bit. But yeah. It's just it did sort of spoil it slightly, but you know, it's 5 points, it's top of the table. We've not, like I said, you know, I think, you know, people are talking about how like, oh, you know, yes, we're at home, but you know, we can be beaten. And I'm not saying we can't be beaten, but actually at home all season in the Prem and Europe, we haven't been beaten at home by any team. So, you know, we've kept that going, kept that, you know, on the list of, you know, on another home win to go. We've only lost 2 the whole entire Prem. You know, I'm not saying we'll definitely win the semi-final. Who knows what's going to happen? That's a couple of weeks away. But, you know, the Gardens is still a fortress in terms of no team has been able to turn us over there. And so, you know, it's a positive way to sort of go into the last round, even if it wasn't maybe the best performance we've put out. Like it was by no means the worst. Don't get me wrong, but.
It is a positive, but it's also bloody like the first thing they're going to put on the away dressing room, isn't it? No one's won here this season. That gives them more
Yeah,
motivation to go and do it.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the other positives of the team. I mean, you said it earlier. I mean, George Furbank's so good, isn't he?
Oh
Like,
man, we're going to miss him. We're going to miss him.
like he's genuinely the best fullback in the league. And when he plays like that and he's in full flow, that it's poetry in motion. He's such a talented player. He makes such a difference to our attack. And yeah, full flow. Like, the number of occasions where he was just, it was like watching an eagle soar sort of thing. And the Finn try was prime example of that X factor. That extra burst of pace, the angle, the timing of the run, everything. The pass was perfect out to Freeman, like brilliant. But then there were moments where he got the ball and he picked it up with his laces, and then he still managed to get in like the perfect, nudge through sort of thing. Like just the sheer skill level of the man. Yeah, well worth man of the match in my eyes.
He just glides across the grass, doesn't he? It's just so, like you say, it's elegant. You can imagine a classical short like tone being played as he runs, like cause it's just something about it. We are going to miss him so bad, but we get why it's happened, and we wish him well. Not against us, but we wish him well at Quins.
Yeah, I mean that try was probably like all the tries. To be fair, were actually really really good. Like we were on like, I know that Saints have already had out their like nominations for like club awards, and you'd think that some of those tries would be getting on the list of try of the season if it was a bit later. They were so good. But yeah, that Finn Smith one was just something else right from the start. I think it's like Pearson with the ball out behind him to Ferbs, and then Ferbs is just off, like I said. And then when you've got Tommy on one side and Finn on the other, like, well, you're going to score. You just know that that's going to happen at that point. But yeah, it was so well worked, like from start to finish. But you're right about it's really funny, like not to pick on Smith at all, but you're right. When you see Furbank running at full pelt versus Smith, it's quite funny. Like Ferbs, I think they've both got pace. Don't get me wrong, but like you said, with Ferbs, it's like a glide. With Finn, he's like having to push. He's really pushing to get himself up to maximum pace, but he is fast, so it does work. But yeah,
I think it was Finn who put Ferbs through the hole. I think it was Pearson out the back to Finn.
Pearson to Finn, yeah.
Put Ferbs through the gap, and then absolutely burnt every candle he had to try and keep up, and got on the. He did well to keep up with Ferbs and Freeman, so he did all right.
Well, that was it, right? So
and then at the end, when he ran towards the poles to try and get the easier kick, and he only just got there before he got tackled. Yeah.
Yeah. But Tommy also is a really one to like. So Ferbs is pumping his arms, and so is Smith. Tommy is like, just the man just has pace. And he doesn't even have to try. So when again you watch him compared to the other two, like his arms are going, but not like the other two. And I was like, you really do notice how much pace, that raw pace that guy has. Like,
yeah, he just looks like he's out for an afternoon jog. Like,
he's
barely sweating. He's just, I thought he was also again as ever. Like, I think we probably take it for granted at this point, but he was outstanding. Like some of the finishes they put in. That break, the outside line, and then to throw it back inside. Everything he does is nigh on. I mean, there was one moment where it was from a kick back, I think, and he dropped the ball, and like sort of, it was almost a shock to realise, in fact, he's human. He's capable of dropping the ball, because you wouldn't believe that was the case watching him. He is. It's just unreal. There's one bit where he took the ball. It was on like the right. There's a box kick from them. He was on the right wing, obviously, and he went up and he got it like an AFL player with two hands above his head, and he just, his hands it looked like he was catching a tennis ball, because he's got these huge hands. But like no one else is doing that, because it's really difficult, to go and take a ball with both your hands above your head and just do it really comfortably. And gather it and win the space, win the ball, get up that high. No one else is doing that, because it's exceptionally hard. And he does it, and it looks like, well, obviously that's just what you do, because it's easy. He's just unreal in terms of talent.
He's also not selfish either, because the one with Finn's try, I think he could have just chipped that head and won the race and scored there, or took the player on, but he was like, I'll pop it into Finn. Maybe he was just thinking, can Finn make it though?
I think if he put that on his on the floor and put it on his foot, he would have been called out massively. Even if he'd scored, 2-on-1
That's what I'm saying.
is
But that's
bread
what I'm
and
saying. He's
butter.
not selfish. A lot of
Yeah, yeah.
wingers would have chipped that ahead and gone for
But they
it.
would
But
have
he's
been
like,
called out and dragged over the coals on a Monday morning in the TV room because, like, 2-on-1 is if you butcher 2-on-1 in rugby, then that's that. That's bread and butter. That should be easily done. So I think obviously he doesn't need to score any more tries. Does he? He's top try scorer of all time for us
yeah. Well, he needs,
Yeah.
does he need 2 more to match? Is it Calori? I can never say that lad's name.
this season. Yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah.
Does it stop now? Or does it carry on to the final?
No, I think it's a regular season.
Regular
So
season,
he's
yes.
got
It'll
it.
be next week. Will
He's got
count,
it.
and then
Yeah.
He might not play next week. We can get into that, but yeah.
I mean, the counting of it, still goes through to next week, and but yeah.
I mean, other solid performances. About Pearson was back to his best. Coles was outstanding.
Oh, Coles. I was just looking up because I wanted to check who it was that scored the try, but for Freeman's try, Alex Coles' hands, my God. So Pearson throws the ball back, and I think Ferbs overruns it, and Coles, bearing in mind he's like the tallest man, and he's like a giraffe. He manages to somehow bend all the way down and scoop that up. Like, you talk about that just off his laces, like basically scoop that up right off his laces, get up, throws a basketball pass over, and basically sets up the try. That guy is just, I mean, we've mentioned it before, didn't we? Like, he's sort of the same as like Ferbs. Like, he'll come back from an injury and it's like he never left. Like, they're just at a level that, they come back and, like 9 out of 10 players have to come back, and it takes a few games before they get back into their rhythm. But Coles is another one of those where, I mean, I thought he was excellent against Bristol, and I thought he was absolutely fantastic and I thought the same about Prowse as well. I mean, like, he's having some really, really good games at the moment, but his, pick up of the ball that was out, him noticing that it's out, picking it up, chucking it to Hendy, and the ref going, yeah, it's out. I was like, well, there's no point telling you now, mate. Hendy's already basically over the line by the time you've decided it is. He's come on, I think, in the past few games as well. Since he's getting like regular starts and more minutes and stuff. Like, that's just been the making of him towards the back end of the season. I mean, like I said, like, almost to say that there were certain things we did that didn't work very well. It was a bit messy sometimes, like players overrunning passes and things just not quite going to hand. But I really think it's more just kind of Gloucester turning up as to why it was so close. I actually think we did some really, really good stuff throughout, and
there's one negative. There's one negative. I don't want to be the poo-pooer of it all, but I thought the line-out was atrocious, and we clearly missed Kemeny. It's like literally without Kemeny in that line-out, either because I'm not picking on anyone, but Robbie Smith. I don't know whether it was the call-in, but the throws were just not going to the right person, was he? When Wright came on, it improved a bit, but without Kemeny, my days, we're not good at the line-out.
I feel like the best combo is Cole's calling and Kemeny there to be one of the catchers, but it's one of those that you definitely speak. But like I said, it certainly is still nowhere near as bad as it was in the derby. Like, at least we've made some improvements there. There's still work to be done.
I think we need to have as a minimum, we need Kemeny, Pearson, Coles on the pitch. As a minimum, we need those 3 options, and then Pollock does all right, and he's in as another option.
If needed.
If needed, and obviously if Chick's playing, then he's a good option as well. But you need at least those 3. I think Robbie didn't have the best day at the races in terms of his throwing, that's for sure. But it's a big issue, and I think the problem is because we're having issues with it, we go short very often. So we go front of the line out, and because of the quality of McParland and when Mitchell's playing passes, we can still get width off the attack. So we can go to the front and we can still hit the midfield because they're so good. Their delivery is excellent. So we do that option, but the problem being is, if you do that option every time, you get found out, and you need someone as athletic and as quality as Kemeny in the air to make it work, because you're competing against quality players, aren't you? Like, it's the Premiership, it's a good standard, and if you send a good line-out option but not as good as Kemeny up, it's a 50-50 almost. Whereas if you send Kemeny, he gives you that extra sort of percentage chance of getting the ball back.
I think it was a bit of the issue of, I say issue despite the fact that we absolutely ran riot, it's a bit of the issue with the Bristol game that because Bristol really didn't target anything, it made it look like everything was working perfectly. Like most of the lineouts went to hand. I said, well, because they weren't challenging, they weren't putting anyone up. They literally were not engaging in so many aspects of the game that I feel like, I think I messaged both of you afterwards. I was like, it feels like some of those issues were kind of hidden against Bristol as
Yeah,
opposed to actually fixed.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
then you get a game where Gloucester came and they, they challenged a bit more, they put more into it. It forced errors and made you realise that actually, yes, it's not as bad as it was at the derby, but is it actually where it needs to be still? No. So it was kind of some of the issues with Bristol, as you think. Don't get me wrong, like I still felt like if we turned up how we did against Bristol, we'd probably beat most teams in the league fairly easily. But you had that added dimension really of Bristol just, and this is not to crap on Bristol because that result for them this weekend was incredible. So absolute fair play to them to turn that around, like in a week, but in a couple of weeks, sorry. But yeah, they just didn't challenge anything, did they? So we could do anything. We basically did everything right because there's absolutely no threat coming from anywhere, and that was a bit different against Gloucester. That they were forcing errors. Throughout the,
yeah,
not just in the line out, but through other areas of the match as well, because they turned up. So yeah, there's still definitely stuff to work on. But as I said, like it's another win at home, and yes, you don't want to be winning in the last minutes necessarily every week because I don't think I can take it health wise. But I suppose it is a positive that the club are showing that if there is a tight game, like they should have the confidence that they'd still be able to kind of close that out. And yeah, I'd have loved to have done it on Dingers's try, so it didn't go quite down to the wire. But I can't deny the absolute beauty of it being Ferbs being the one to get
yeah,
it for us.
yeah.
Would I have
I'm
rather? Would I still rather have been that we'd done it a few minutes prior? Sure, but
I'm a bit like Charles though. Like the ones when we win massive, and it's like like a basketball game. Like that game was so different, and like I was pumping all the way through. And when we scored, I don't jump up that often, but I was going absolutely mental. That's what I love. It's like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, yes, come on. Whether it's like you're winning 90 points, it's like still amazing, but you're just like, whoa, the boys just did that. It's a totally
yeah.
different experience, and so
And the
I
reality
know,
is that they're going to get more out of that, being able to grind that out
yeah,
when you come to a semi-final and hopefully a final, than the kind of thing that happened against like, Bristol and even Gloucester a couple of seasons back. When we put 90 on them, like they're going to learn more about themselves from a match like that, and hopefully that will be able to push them on as we kind of get towards a proper business end. But yeah, I think, like I said, we really do need to put it down to the fact that Bristol properly showed up and they posed a
Gloucester.
challenge, and that's what. Sorry, Bristol, Gloucester just happened
Yeah,
on the brain.
yeah,
That
yeah.
you want them to show up and test you, and they did, and we'll probably have learned a lot more. We'll have probably learned a lot more in the review this Monday than they would have the previous fixture, to be honest, in terms of what the club need to work on and what they're doing well and how to grind those wins out. Doesn't
Yeah,
make it
without a
easier to have to
shadow.
watch it though.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Like you learn by be putting under pressure, and they were put under pressure, and also when you're in a final or a semi-final and there's a score in it, you're gonna look back to the game at Gloucester. You're gonna the Gloucester game, the game at Exeter, for example.
Yeah.
You're gonna look back to those moments when you've been in those trenches and you've won the game. You're not gonna think back to 60 points at half time against Bristol because there's literally nothing to come out of that from a psychological point of view. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, but also, we don't buy season tickets to watch wins, right? We buy season tickets to watch games of rugby and be entertained and follow the drama and the story of a season. And if the story of a season is, well, they win every game 90-20, well,
Yeah.
it's not really, there's nothing endearing or engaging about that. So, that's why that game was just back to being. I mean, I don't know whether my memory's gone or whatever, but I feel like we used to have so many more close games, and maybe that's because we weren't as good. So, the way the league's gone is home advantage is really crucial. So when you've got a really good side like Saints are at the moment, you get a load of good wins at home. And so therefore,
Yeah.
by watching all the home games live, more than the away games, you just get this
Yeah.
idea that we just win well every week. Whereas, when we
Yeah.
weren't so good and we were scrapping and scraping results, it seemed like every game seemed to be, you had the home advantage, but we weren't very good. So you had a good team trying to beat you, and it seemed to be closer at games. But
I think
yeah,
that's the point about I think that's the point about the whole league, to be fair. Like it used to be close games week in, week like you think about like this weekend, all of those games were close games, and it was probably one of the best weekends of the whole season. And I'm
Yeah.
not just saying that because the games also happen to be. I mean, I must say, like, you're right, Simon, about like standing up and like cheering and everything. Like, usually I'll only ever do that for like Saints or England, but you best believe I was jumping off the sofa when Newcastle were running in that last try. That like level of joy I felt for a team that in any other situation I wouldn't like specifically support. It was like I literally couldn't sit still. And that just kind of felt like what that whole weekend was like. Like all of the fixtures were so good and they were so tight and they were properly contested. And that is really kind of what makes, yeah, like you said, like rugby. And yeah, the past sort of maybe two, possibly three seasons where we've seen some massive, massive scores being put on teams. Like, yeah, it's a strange one really, because like even in that Newcastle Sale game, it looked like at one point Sale were going to put a massive score on Newcastle, and I thought, oh no, this is going to be the dampener of the weekend because everything else has been so close, and then obviously the comeback happened. But yeah, it's that you're right. Like, don't get me wrong, it was nice to watch the win over Bristol because Bristol was like getting the monkey off the back because we hadn't beaten them for a couple of seasons. But would I really have wanted to have done it that way? Not really, because like it also felt like you sort of did feel a little bit sorry for Bristol because you know they're better than that, and then they obviously showed that over this past weekend. So yeah, definitely, like I said, not necessarily for my physical or mental or psychological health. Do I want to see it every weekend? But you should be seeing it every weekend, really. So yeah, it did really make it a genuinely exciting fixture. And you're right, like statistically, most likely, like the semi final is going to be a close encounter because that is still usually what happens. Like think about the year we won and the semi was against Sarries, right? And there was like a few points in it at the end, like 3 or 4 points or whatever. Like they're supposed to be close and they're supposed to be hard fought contests. So, and that's most likely what will happen when you get to a semi-final stage. So, yes, it was an ugly way to win, even though we did some beautiful stuff at times. But if that's going to help you down the line, then can't
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
argue with it.
exactly that. I'm not going to lie. I just don't take this as a cocky way, but I never doubted we'd win that. Like I'm loving this feeling. I've been going since I was 4, so 40 years. I've been through some absolute drubbings and had some awful fixtures and been the team that gets relegated and not. But it was actually nice to sit there and go. I still think even with a minute to go, we can win this. I think we'll win this. And I haven't had that feeling for a few years. These last few
Yeah,
years has just been magic. It like long may it continue, but it's not cocky. I'm not going to think we're going to go and win the final, win the semi-final easily. But like that game, I was like, we're still going to win this. I
yeah.
just sat there,
I,
and went,
I
we're going
think
to win it. I just thought,
I think it's so. I think it's so. Like literally, even what we've shown, even against, and yes, I'm going to branch to the derby again. Like the 3 tries we scored in that were so easy. It was like we get ball in hand, and I genuinely think that we surpass every team in the league by a significant margin when we have ball in hand and what we're able to do with it. So you're right. Like you get to the end, you think, yeah, there's only a minute on the clock, but we run it through a few players' hands and we're over the line.
yeah,
Like you really do kind of get that feeling. Doesn't mean that I like it. Like I said, winning right at the end and like having to hopefully pray that it happens. But no, I agree. Like, and I still feel the same as you. Like, doesn't mean that I feel like we'd be able to necessarily do that at a semi-final or final because it's like it is a step like above. But yeah, you did get the feeling that if we can get the ball through the hands, like we can carve anyone up. And luckily we did.
It is definitely a thing about this side that we've never had
Yeah,
before, in the sense that there is this innate belief in, and you can see it in themselves,
yeah,
that they can win the game, they can turn around. The amount of games that we've won in the last 5 minutes of a game is significantly quite a lot, and I think from the leadership group of Furbank, Finn, and Dingwall, and Mitchell, etc., there is this sort of real spirit of they can still win this, and we've seen that over the last few years with this group. It's something special about them, and like Simon said, we've been in so many scenarios where we're losing with the last 5 minutes, but you still have this sort of belief, oh, we can still win this. Whereas the previous sort of 20 years of watching Saints has been a case of we're winning with 5 minutes to go by 10 points, and we're thinking we can still lose this.
yeah, exactly that.
Whereas
yeah.
there just seems this belief in this side, which is special. Um, yeah, but and I don't know whether losing Furbank is losing a bit of that. I don't know, but he seems to be so much part of that sort of rhetoric of belief, I think. But we will see.
Well, we did. Well, you say that, but we did. Was it? I'm not saying we didn't miss him, but weren't there a thing when Lewis Ludlam was here? We had like 11 games where he was out, and we won 11 in a row. So we can win without him. So just think of the positives.
Yeah.
Or was that without Lewis Ludlam?
No, wasn't that without Lewis Ludlam and
Okay, that's
Furbank?
might have been.
Furbank was like
yeah.
Furbank was like captain who stepped
Yeah,
in
that's it. I
and,
missed
and
it
won
up.
Yeah,
like 12 in
stepped
a
in
row,
as,
didn't he? Yeah.
That totally
Yeah.
inept my whole That was my point. Totally mixed up there, then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's what you mentioned before though. Like for the past few seasons, each season we seem to have lost our best player, and yet we seem to realise like how much talent we still have in the bank. And I've got no doubt that's still going to be the same. It's going to be hard. Don't get me wrong. I suppose the difference here is that we actually have to we have to actually play against it. You know, at least a couple times a season. But
we're used to losing our best players. We have consistently lost
Yeah.
our best players every season, and yet they churn out more talent and they go again. And
Yeah.
you know, I don't mean to bring this up, etc. But it's a real contrast when you look at Saracens. Saracens for a very long period didn't lose those players. You know, where we're losing players to France or to other clubs, and because we're making contractual decisions based on what we can best do, they didn't need to do that. They just paid the salary that was asked, and you know, for whatever reason, and therefore their huge spell of dominance because they just never lost talent. You know, when we were losing Mujati and Tonga and Ryan and everything, whatever. But you know, you see them now, and they're in a position where they've lost that talent, and because they haven't had that ingrained in them of all right, who's the next cab off the rank, it's going to take them a little while because they've still got a huge amount of talent. And you saw that, you know, they're having a real late surge in the season, and I think the emotion around Mark McCall could almost become a bit of a driver for them. But you know, that would be a worry if we play them in a semi-final and they're all hopped up on trying to give Mark McCall a send off. They're going to be a real challenge. But you know, they're taking a few years, whereas we like keep churning them out, keep churning out that talent and going again.
Yeah.
The one thing that makes the Furbs leaving harder is the fact Ram's going as well. So like Ram could step into fullback, like, and you
it's like the double whammy.
he's still. That's the thing. It's a double whammy, like two quality back three players, and Pater's still young. Hey, Hendy is. We all know he's world class, but I'm not sure he's a fullback yet. So I am a tiny bit worried, unless we've got someone that we're going to sign. But then you think, well, if you're going to plough money into a player, why don't you just pay Furbs? But yeah, I don't know. That's why I'm not in the financial game.
Hendy showed his magic with that. You know that you said you mentioned Jess the try with Prowse. You know, Mark McCauley just you know, it's out. I mean, I'm not sure it's your job to tell players the ball's out, but anyway, he
told him too late anyway, because I heard Prowse say it first. Go, it's out, and he went to pick it up. I was like, he's either getting penalised here or he's being left. And Prowse ran. I think.
I'll be honest with you, it wasn't out.
It was in the ruck. It wasn't out.
And I think Carly was saying it to one of Gloucester's players. I don't think he was saying it to Saints. I think they're asking, like, sir, and he's like, the ball's out, and I was like, we've already scored, lads. It's too late.
But that's the point I was making. Like we'd scored because the acceleration, the power of Hendy was like it was like watching a jet fighter take off, like a Harrier jet or something. He just went from nothing to everything in the like that. It was off. It was he's such an explosive athlete.
We saw it against Bristol, didn't we? Like Reece Ammit's probably just pips him for pace, but he nearly had him. He was running across the pitch to Innie. It makes you realise actually Reece Ammit really is speedy, and he nearly had him there. And I think he did actually get a hand to him. It wasn't enough to knock him off balance, but he did get a hand to him. Yeah, and I think having him at wing and taking the pressure off in terms of like, you know, you're not at fullback, you're probably not going to be catching too many high balls, really has become the making of him again in the past sort of few fixtures. Like I think I mentioned it last time. I mentioned that someone said it on Reddit. Like he's a prime example of like a confidence player. That when he's got it, he's so good. The issue I think is when he loses it slightly, it can sort of manifest in different ways in terms of like issues. But I think having him on the wing, like in the position that he so clearly should be in. So it will be interesting what they will do for fullback next season.
The only thing I would say with Hendy is he's got all the skills and talent. It's like you say, confidence. They need to get the confidence in him to go out and earn and win that ball. You know, there's no reason why he can't catch a high ball. Like he has all the 100%. Physical attributes. He has all the technical skills.
I think it's just his timing, isn't it? It's his jump timing. He just doesn't jump at the right time, and then Just,
Yeah, there is a bit of a magic with him as well because there's a moment when he overran the ball against Gloucester and it sort of bounced off his elbow, and you sort of think that's him all over because it's like it's either going to bounce off his elbow, land perfectly in his hand, and he's going to run the whole length of the pitch and score a try, or it's going to bounce off his elbow and not come to nothing sort of thing. He does have those moments when you're like, what the hell's just happened? It's like ping pongs all around his body, and he's got the ball and he's running down the wing. Or, I think those moments and just a bit more composure in those moments is what he's missing.
Yeah.
But you only get that composure by playing. So it's almost like we need to back him at fullback, give him all the confidence, and then he'll work it out. He'll get there. The more games he'll play, the better he'll get because we know his talent.
Oh, he's world class. It's just tiny, not being picky. It's just tiny little bits. If he can catch a high ball, he'll be in the England squad. There's no doubt about it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He's so talented.
I think that's sort of what got me after that the 9 of our players made it into the training camp. I was like, oh, Hendy's really like hard done by to miss out. I said, I don't think he's ready. And sometimes I feel like trying to shoehorn someone in before they're ready could have a more detrimental effect. Like, I actually don't think he needs that pressure necessarily over the summer. I think he needs to finish up this season, get into the next one fresh and ready to go. Work on, like you said, those kinds of skills in pre-season with Northampton. Stay in that kind of setup, and I think that is what would set him on a good trajectory to maybe get in as we look at like next year's Six Nations and onwards. I actually feel that like, sure, you want to get as many in the England camp as possible because it's a great representation, but you also have to think like individually what's the best decision for people. And I'm not sure I would say that he's like knocking on the door, but he's not. I wouldn't say he's through it yet. I wouldn't say he's quite there yet.
I would like him genuinely. This is what I would think would be best for him. Would be to him to tour, but not necessarily play.
Yeah.
You look at how Manny's playing at the moment, and you've got to attribute a lot of that just to him being in camp. Training every week at that level with that level of teammate.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that would help Hendy see a different perspective of things and a bit of confidence driven into him a bit as well, maybe. But
and Manny attributed it to that when he spoke to us last time.
Yeah.
He had talked about, some people it works differently, right? So you think about like Finn at the Lions and not being picked, like clearly affected his confidence. And then you have the flip side, like I said, of Manny, who just being in and around that environment and knowing that you're not quite there yet, but you're knocking on the door, and these skills, being in this camp, is only going to help you push. And like I said, we're seeing it massively with how well he's been playing in the latter half of the season. So, yeah, and I think it's interesting because we haven't seen Ollie for a while, and I'm assuming that that's perhaps a recurrence of some injury, or he's not quite fit and ready to go. So you've got to think that Hendy really, can stake a proper claim on that opposite winger spot, because no one's moving Tommy at this point.
That's what I'm saying. No. If you've got Tommy, Hendy, and Furbank, no offence to Ollie, he's not going to get in, is he? And he can't play anywhere but wing, so he won't be on the bench. So it's unfortunate. Yeah. But that's
at the moment. I think at the moment that's the scenario, because I think just form is dictating that. I think if he was the Ollie Slyton who was scoring tries for England, he would get in the team, but he hasn't. He's not that Ollie at the moment. He's got to work his way in, and Anyway, but opportunities. Would it be a potential opportunity for him to stake a claim at Quins next week? Because are we suspecting they go full go, send everyone out, or are we thinking mixed veg and midweek shags are going along? What's going on?
We were discussing this after the match on WhatsApp, weren't we? I was like, do we go full out and don't let them rest, because we know what happens when they have a week off, they get a bit rusty, or do we just rest a lot? I wouldn't want to make that decision. I don't think you can rest them all.
Maybe. No, I don't think they would do that. But I think for me, I feel like it's a bigger risk resting them and going in rusty, which essentially I can almost stake my mortgage on happening, because that's happened across the whole season and last season, and that hasn't really changed. I feel like it's a bigger risk to rest everyone because you're scared of injuries, but then they're just not firing when you get to a semi-final. And like, that's the one fixture really that you literally can't afford that to happen if you want to move on. But like I said, I think there's some players that maybe you could, because they're already, like a Fremo, for example. He can have 2 weeks off and he's going to come back and he's going to be absolutely raring to go, right? So I feel like it's one of those where it really is like an individual person, player by player. So some of them, like Ram, for example, you'd play because he's just come back. Coles probably still needs more minutes in him. Pearson probably still needs more minutes in him. Like there are some of them that actually you probably will play them simply because they've not played a lot, and you want to get them back in. Like they rested JJ and Kemeny this week, so my assumption would be that they'll be involved this week in some capacity. But like I said, there's a way of taking some of them, and like you don't have to play them for long. Like you could even bench them and they do the last 30, or they do the first 30. Like there's so many different permutations of what they could do. I'm not even going to try and guess this time around. But I think there's a core part of that team that I think need to play. We are essentially the definition of a momentum team.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
we
worry
do.
and I worry that taking a large portion of them out is going to just completely derail that. But
The,
I think there's.
the only, I was going to say the only one I wouldn't play is JJ because I still think he's suffering from that silly kick he tried to do, and I don't think he's recovered from it. So I give him. He doesn't need any time. You just give him the ball and let him bash through. That's it. He's not rusty. He's never rusty. So I'd rest him personally. Maybe put him on the bench. Bring him on
Well,
for the last 30.
he obviously didn't play at the weekend, did he? But I disagree with a few of those ones. I think one thing to note though is sometimes when we come off a rest, 2 week rest, whatever, we've looked rusty. But often that's because they've had a week off.
yeah,
They've sent them away around the world for a week, whatever. They come back and they don't. Whereas
yeah,
if you spend, this week really getting into training and really, and you ignore the Quins game, you go, how do we get our best team primed and ready for the semi-final? Because that's the only thing that matters now. And you just make decisions off the back of that, and that means, because who could we not possibly do without? And I'm thinking we need McParland.
And
You
Finn.
know,
oh yeah, 100%.
yeah, we need
yeah.
Finn. We need Tommy. We
Yeah.
need Ferbs. We need Coles, in my opinion. We probably need Pollock. I wouldn't
Yeah.
play any of them purely out of let's wrap them up in cotton wool and get them sleeping in hydronic chambers so they're full of oxygen. If we can't win a game without a player, do not play them against Quins. And I
No, no.
just generally think those players are so important.
I'm hearing you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I'm hearing
yeah.
you, but the problem is they didn't rest last week, did they? And they were a bit rusty against Gloucester. They had a week off because we didn't have a match, and I'm guessing they still trained. Because remember, Manny said he didn't train Monday because bank holiday, but he watched the boys train. So they have had a whole 2 weeks of training for that game, and they looked a bit off.
Yeah, but how you attribute that, whether that's mindset, whether that's
Yeah.
physicality or routine or
It's
whatever.
also the opposition, though. It's the opposition. Gloucester
Yeah.
came and they were up for it, so you can't
Yeah.
take that away.
And-
Please don't think
and
we're
I-
doing that. Gloucester were amazing. End of. That's it. And I think they
And I would say
deserved
that-
the game. To be fair.
Yeah, they're probably not. I would also say as well, I find it highly unlikely that they'll just rest everyone. Like I said, they'll identify some of those that you said, like with 9, like outside of McParland, this is nothing against James or Wyman, but like it's a step down. So you do, you really do need to save that guy because he really is kind of all you've got in that situation. The same with 10, right? This isn't anything against Bello, but like you win matches with Finn Smith, or like he helps you get wins. And yeah, the same with Tommy. But then there's some of them that I said like. You could maybe bet the same mark about Hendy, but he hasn't played that much. So are they going to be thinking that doesn't necessarily need to do the whole game, but are they thinking that 30, 40 minutes will still benefit him? And then like I said, like Ram only just coming back, you'd imagine he might even be the starter in that game because he really doesn't have minutes. And
That's
he's an
why-
exceptional player, right? So you'll still be
that's
getting
why-
some first teamers, I think, playing next week.
Definitely get some first teamers, but just not
Yeah.
the out and out stars.
No.
I'd say, I'd be
yeah.
like Fischetti, Robbie, Cundiona, Prowse, Lockett, Pearson, Chick, Kemeny,
Kemeny probably, yeah.
Wyman, Bello, Hutch, Litchfield, Dingle, Litchfield. There's so many good quality centres. Pick 2. One you're protecting the one that you want to protect, and then a back 3 of Slytone, Ram, and Hendy. Like it's still a really really strong side. It's just the players that you just.
I'd play
you know,
Pater. I'd rest Hendy. I don't
I
think
think the problem is that
we can't live without Hendy now. He's such a mad magician, and he does.
yeah, but I don't. I think the lack of game time he's had, I don't think you can rest him for the whole fixture. You could maybe, you could. It has, but that was a pretty serious injury, and I think even when he first came back, you could tell he wasn't quite fit. So I reckon there's only been 2 games. I'm not saying playing for the whole thing. Like even if you have him on for the first leg or you use him on the bench.
I
But
think
yeah, they'll figure it out individual. It's an individual player thing, isn't it? We can't even say
yeah,
it's not a team decision at this point. It really is what is the best thing for this specific
yeah.
person. Like that is the way. And if that means that you put a team together that isn't quite gelling, that's just the risk that you have to take on the day.
I think with Hendy as well, like, would he be better going into the semi-final having played? Yes. So play him, but knowing that the gamble is less than if you're playing Finn. Because if you're playing Hendy and he gets injured,
Yeah.
the talent behind him is so good. Ram,
Yeah.
Saitome, etc. That
Yeah.
the talent behind, say, Finn is a bit, or McParland is the best example at the moment inside. Is this, there is a drop, and that the
Yeah.
reason. Let's be honest with you, James is quality. He just hasn't played any rugby,
Yeah.
so it's like whether he's fit or not is a big thing. But I'd get minutes into him because you want
100%,
you want him and Wyman vying for that bench spot for the semi final, don't you? And if you,
yeah.
like I said, McParland played the whole game, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't think Wyman
Yes.
came on. He did have his shirt. He did walk around through the tunnel with his shirt on, with his kit
He might
on,
have come on actually.
I don't know if he
He
did.
may have come on right
I
at
don't
the
think
end.
he came on. I don't think he came on, right? So
I'll have a look.
That was a hard day. It was hot, wasn't it? So that would have been.
Yeah,
that
right.
took a lot out of him.
Can you realistically go into a final and expect that of McParland? No, potentially not.
I'd rest them both. 9 and 10, definitely. No, they shouldn't be playing. In my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
You risk going into a semi-final without the stars, and I think the risk is too much. Could you imagine going into a semi-final without Tommy? Or Furbank or Finn or
as you mentioned, Tommy. Amazing, you didn't pick him. He scored a try.
But the good thing, I think the thing you've also got as well is like we've seen it with Ferbs, like he can have a 4-month layoff and come back and play world-class rugby. So he's one of those ones that actually I don't think it is a risk to rest him. Like that guy will not come back rusty because I don't think he's physically capable of that at this stage. So yeah, there are some of those players that said like a Pollock, a Freeman, a Ferbs that you can rest them, and I don't think rustiness is ever a problem with those specific like individuals. And like I said, they're just too important to take any of that risk.
Yeah, exactly that. Right, thinking about, I mean, what do we think about the game? Do we think it's like Quins turned up massively against Saris, didn't they? They look against they played Saris the week before, didn't they? They looked pretty good, and then they played it was Saris.
Saris this weekend, wasn't it? And they got a massive win the week before, 70-odd points, wasn't it, against Newcastle?
Yeah, that's right. But they did look a lot better against Saris for quite a bit of that game, and then I think Saris pulled away, didn't they? So that's happened. But like they're not going to be a rollover, even though they are where they are in the league.
Last game of the season, isn't it, for them? A lot of players leaving.
Are they on holiday? Like, is there an emotional send off? Like, it's going to be very hard to pick them, I think.
I don't think it's an emotional, but are they also able to? Yeah, see, they need to win to try and get that 8th spot. So, Champions Cup qualification is on the line for them. I think they need other results to go their way as well, but they will be throwing, obviously, because all the games start at the same time. You've just got to throw everything into it on the assumption of if we win, we'll get that Champions Cup playoff spot, 8th spot there. So they do actually have something to push for. So they certainly won't be. Not that I would thought so anyway, but a rollover.
You know what the nicest thing is? Any Saints fan or Saints player, there won't be any squeaky bum time. We can sit there knowing we've got a home semi, and the other 3-4 teams could just beat the living poop out of each other, and just to try and get a semi-final spot. And you do as hard as you can, boys, and just hurt each other as much as you can.
I think it might help. It might help the team as well in whatever iteration, whatever they look like, knowing that yeah, obviously they don't want to lose, but knowing that if they do, it doesn't actually affect anything. And sometimes that actually gives you the freedom to play better rugby, funnily enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's going to be like a Saints side who some of them are going to be getting probably their first starts for a while, and they've got a lot to prove in terms of, I want to get selected or I want to put a good showing in ready for next season. And like you said, yes, we're top, we can't lose, but let's go out on the high of showing them why we're top. Versus a Quins side that actually do have a form of, yes, they can't go down, but they are going to want to get Champions Cup rugby if they can help it, obviously, because that's the title you want to go for. So yeah, it'll be two teams that are on complete opposite ends of the spectrum, but because of that, they should both really show up on the day.
But then we, like Charles said earlier, with James and Wyman, they'll also be singing. If I put in a good game here, I might get on the bench for the semi. So
Yeah, so kind of
Yeah, lot to play for.
like Ram as well, you know. He knows that Hendy's been the starter. He knows he's not going to boost Tommy out of the team, but he's got a starting spot to play for.
Good to see it back.
Yeah,
It
like
was good to
the
see it.
9, even like maybe the hookers and the props, because I'd say outside of Manny, like all of them are kind of vying for position and stuff. And also they still think that Curtis may be back before the end of the season, so you chuck him in as an extra kind of value to think about if he's fit
level,
for this.
That's the thing.
If you think if he's fit for this weekend, I'd be surprised if he's not the starter to go and see where he is and where his level is at. So yeah, like I said, there is a lot to play for. Maybe not as the team in terms of what can happen in the league, but individually. And then you see I think that's one of the reasons we got that result away at Bath with some of those players, because they had so much to play for in terms of trying to stake a claim and putting their name forward in terms of contention, and that's going to be exactly the same this time. So yeah, it should be a good one. And I'm glad that I think HBMX said they've got like the multi-view, so I can just have everything going at one time.
Who won the prediction thing?
Well, I mean,
you, I think.
Who do you think? I mean,
because you had Tommy. We were all way off.
Tommy.
Yeah, we were all way off.
I can never remember you two pick as try scorers.
Well, I said, I think if I remember, I said, I really think I should go Hendy, but I'm going to go McParland. And then Hendy scored and McParland didn't.
Yeah. And I went for Pollock, but he spent so much of the time being penalised instead that he couldn't go for that.
wrongfully penalised.
I mean, it's an insurmountable lead. You've absolutely smashed it, Si. So this is pretty much academic, but we'll go through the process anyway.
But we'll do it anyway.
Yeah,
mate, I was awful last year, so I needed to make some changes.
So Jess, if you go first, then in predictions.
Okay. It's so hard because we just don't know who they're going to pick. But I'm going to assume, because he's not played a massive amount, that they'll play Pearson, and that guy seems to quite like scoring tries. So I'm going to pick him as try scorer. Obviously, with the caveat that if any of our picks don't play, we'll all have to choose someone else. Score-wise, I'm going to go close this time. I'm going to back us to get 4 tries, because I think we really can do that better than anyone else. So I'm going to go... I'm going to go 25-30.
25-30, yeah, okay, go on, Si.
I'm going to go big. I'm going to go 45-52.
Nice.
And
I'll go Rambo.
Ram, yeah, cool. Yeah, I sort of get the impression that it is going to be... I think we will rotate heavily. I think we will send a completely rotated side down there.
Yeah, I don't think they'll play Tommy. That's why I didn't pick Tommy.
Yeah, I think I think that both teams will just go hell for leather. And I think it will end up being it'll probably be quite hot, and it'll be a big scoring game. So I'm going to go 41. Oh no, sorry, I'm going to go 37-41. And I'm going to go... And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if it was the other way around. It's sort of one of those games where, how committed are we going to be to it? Are there going to be some players very committed to it because they're trying to win for spots? How the mentality of that game is going to be really interesting. That's why I hope that you go full rotated. Everyone on the pitch playing for a bench spot, and then the motivation will be there, and be great to see some of those players. And I'm going to go for Ollie to score, because I'm hoping.
I was going to go Ollie, but I weren't sure. But the problem is as well, they're going to be wanting to play well, because God forbid it happens, touch wood and everything, crossing fingers. If a player gets injured, they then need to step up anyway. So they need to get game time. So they need to show they're ready.
And there'll be players who are playing their last game in a Saint shirt as well.
Exactly.
Someone like Tom West, for example, might play, and they might rest Manny or Danny Alio, etc. And that might be his last go in a Saint shirt. So he's going to want to leave on a high, isn't he, and play well. So
he's never let us down. He's been a good servant. Is it 2 years he's been here now?
Yeah, he's been a top signing. I think that trio of West, Robbie, and Miller Mills have just been solid professionals who've done a great job for us, and it's a shame
Yeah.
two of them are heading up north. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. It's been another interesting chat. It's good to get proper rugby back, where it was actually, yes, it was a bit to and fro, but there were actually spells of defensive
Even
effort. Yeah,
you say that even if it's not good for your heart, that's typical. Like you better, yeah. I
that's
prefer
where you
Yeah.
games
go,
like
isn't
that.
it? That's where you love the game. If it
Yeah.
was 90, whatever it was the other week, every week, you wouldn't watch it, would you? So anyway, brilliant. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please remember to follow us on social media and get access to our podcast via the platforms as soon as it becomes available by following us on there. But I've been Charles, Jess has been Jess, Sam has been Sam. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye.